There's been a call for double demerit points over holidays and long weekends to try to rein in the carnage on our roads in South Australia. Over the Christmas period, there were 7 deaths on our roads. Speeding offences in that time doubled. It appears there's no solid research to suggest that doubling demerit points has any real impact on driver behaviour, especially where drugs and alcohol are concerned. It's already possible to incur extra demerits if a driver commits more than one offence, and it's thought that approximately 10% of drivers are unlicensed, and one might believe it's these individuals who are most vulnerable to stupidity. Take the man, unidentified, who crashed a vehicle killing his partner and an unborn child. He was allegedly naked, didn't have a licence and intoxicated. Would double demerit points deter a goose like that? I think not. But let's talk to a few parties and get the feel for who thinks what. Let's first of all talk to a senior lawyer who does a lot of work on traffic offences, Michael Woods. Michael, thank you for joining us today. What do you think about this idea of double demerits on public holidays?
No, it's a pleasure, Leon, as usual. Look, it's always that situation where no one wants deaths on the road. If you look at the statistics, though, we all know that it's high speed, alcohol and drugs that kill. We know that. We also know that there's been a very high proportion of deaths in the country and in remote areas. They're not the ones that are going to be affected by the double demerit points on a weekend. It's going to be your average mum and dad. It's going to be your kid driving 6-7 kilometres over a limit. Now, there's a few things that I really need to make clear about it, so I'm going to try and do that really quickly for you, Leon, because I don't want to take too much of your listeners' time. But in South Australia, we already doubled the demerit points recently. Last year, there were a number of offences that went up in demerit points. For instance, we used to have 1 demerit point if you were 14 kilometres over, and you had 3 from 15 to 30. They changed that so that you had 2 if you are less than 10 kilometres, and you ended up with 3 if you're 10 to 20, and then 5 if you're 20 to 30. So they've, if you like, moved the scale back of the tolerances, decreased the middle one, but increased the others, of course. Now already, young P-platers and young drivers have 2 points for being a couple of kilometres over. Also, there are many offences that have very large amount of demerit points compared to other states. If you double that for a P-plater, for instance, and you make it 4 points on a weekend for 6 kilometres over a speed limit, a P-plater is going to lose their licence for one relatively minor traffic offence. You only get one appeal in 5 years, and there's going to be a loss of jobs. And yet, when you go to argue, people will say, we take no pity on these young drivers hooning around. In general, they don't. They're a lot better than we were when we were driving at that age, Leon, and that's the reality of it. Most of the kids today are pretty good, actually, and it's not recognised enough. But there are so many that can get one little slip, and on a double demerit points, they will lose it. So many of our demerit points are 3-pointers. Now, to give you an example, I said I'm trying to do this really quickly. In New South Wales, whilst we sit here and someone sits in their little ivory towers over here making decisions about what road safety initiative shall we pop in this time, and they double the demerit points and say, well, New South Wales has done that since 1997. Actually, if you look at it, New South Wales have been in the process of reducing demerit points in recent years. They reduced 22 offences in 2010, where they took them back from 2 and 3 pointers to 0. Now, they were things like driving in a bus lane, not entering a roundabout in the right traffic arrow, those sorts of things that we all do. A kid doing a U-turn at a no U-turn sign when, or anyone else that does it. So they actually reduced 22 offences. You've also got to bear in mind, if you're going to start copying New South Wales on the bad things, as they say, copy them on some of the others too. We always seem to be behind. But they have, for instance, a situation where professional drivers over there have 14 points, not 12. Their P2 licence holders get 7 points, not 4. If a P-plater loses their licence over there, they lose it for 3 months, not 6 months. So these sort of things also need to be considered in this state. If we're going to pick up the so-called heavy-handed approach all the time from other states, we've also got to pick up the other end, because you're going to find a lot of ordinary, decent people will lose their licence and not be in a position with our harsh things to keep their jobs and keep their houses and kids keep their apprenticeships and all sorts of things. And to me, unless there's strong evidence it works, get in the hills like where you've got racing motorbikes, get out in the country a bit more, do some of those things. But I think we ought to be very cautious about just sounding like we're going to do another road safety initiative that's not proven to work.
Michael Woods, thank you very much. That's traffic lawyer and senior counsel Michael Woods from Woods & Co.